live from Tatooine. It's the Disney Plus Weekly Review brought to you by the Movie Change Up Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joe Fricke, or for this episode, known as the Book of Boba Fett. And someone who I feel may have some hot takes about one of the episodes we'll be talking about today is Team Walter, aka Tristan, who's always my co-host on this show. Tristan, we had a pretty, normally we do these, record these on Friday nights, but because of some miscommunication, some scheduling issues, we weren't able to record this until Monday night. And I'm glad we did because some big stuff dropped today. We got the Book of Boba Fett trailer, and we also have some news regarding my favorite Star Wars character, Darth Maul. So, Tristan, up until today, it's been a pretty uneventful week for Disney Plus, but what did you think so far?
Yeah, we were talking last week, like, hey, it's going to be a light week. You might not really have much to talk about. We were thinking of some kind of like filler topics to put in there. And yeah, we had that problem where we had to push back a couple of days. And lo and behold, it was a blessing in disguise, I think, because we have a lot more to talk about. And we still have some good core stuff to talk about. Doogie Aloha, you said my name is Team Walter, so that'll be a fun discussion. And I'm looking forward to that. And we also got another Marvel Assembled, the behind-the-scenes series they've been doing. And those have always been interesting, too. So we have a lot to talk about, more than I ever thought we would. So it'll be a fun one.
Yeah, Doogie was a pretty solid episode. Let's kick off with that. So this episode, I believe, was episode 8. We have 2 more episodes left in the season. And the episode was titled Talk Story. And there was, I think, 3 plots, actually, this episode. You had the main plot with Lahala, who her main thing was her boyfriend, Walter, that she's been hanging out with. They don't really have a lot in common. Like, they care about each other, they like each other, they like spending time together. But she's obviously this very accomplished 16-year-old doctor, and her boyfriend, who is a typical 16-year-old kid who likes to skateboard and hang out with his friends, and he really hasn't thought about his future. And then you have kind of the parent plot, and then the plot with the 2 brothers of one of them, the older brother, just kind of likes making these brownie cakes, and then the younger brother has like these business aspirations, and he kind of takes over, and there causes a rift between them. But what were your thoughts on this episode?
A unique one, Joe, because we've been praising this show for so long about how well it kind of blends the tones together and is able to appeal not just to kids, but also to the adults. And this one was not so much doing that for me. This one was very much on like the cheesy Disney Channel original movie kind of side of things in a way that I had a really fun time with. So it was definitely not among the serious episodes, among the ones that would have really impressed us, but I had a surprisingly fun time with it. There's a lot of cheesy moments that I'm going to go through when we get to it. But yeah, a whole collage of cheesiness in this episode here that I had a good time with. But I'm not sure what your thoughts are going to be, Joe. I know you're a big Walter fan, and Walter had we had a Walter focused episode this week. So what were your thoughts on it?
Lahala sucks. This episode sucks. Are we just going to ignore the fact that Lahala has a boyfriend and legit just went on a date with another guy that fans of other Disney properties and other maybe Universal properties might recognize as Ty Simpkins, who was Riley Keener in Iron Man 3, the little kid that Tony Stark hangs out with, and he's also in the first Jurassic World movie. And now he's all grown up, and he's like super into poetry, and he asked Lahala out on a date, even though she has a boyfriend, and she says yes, even though she has a boyfriend. And then it turns out, spoiler alert, that he kind of only wants her to recommend him for like this college program, and she realizes she's being used and all that. But still, like, she just goes to Walter and is like, oh, like, I don't care that we're different. Like, I like that we're different. And it's like, okay, like, why are we ignoring the fact that she just went on a date with another guy?
Look, I mean, that's part of dating is like, you occasionally, when you're especially early on in their dating life, Walter's not a prominent character in the show, so I wasn't too offended by that because of course, like when you're a teenager, once in a while,
Walter's my favorite character on the show. I am offended.
Look, I am Team Walter ultimately. I came down on the Walter side of the debate, but I think part of that was her having to step away for a bit and like find this guy who on paper would be like, oh, the perfect match. All of these things line up for what we should be on paper together, and realizing, especially when you're a teenager, like you don't need that in your relationship. And I think this feels like a really strong teenager kind of relationship where it's like superficial, but they like each other. They have fun when they're together. This is just kind of like a fun relationship. I don't necessarily see them as being like together for life type relationship, but like they said in this
I hope
episode, like
not.
they're teenagers, they're in love, they're having a good time, and that's kind of what a teenage romance is about. Not necessarily like, oh, a perfect future for me, but like a good time to have right now.
She doesn't deserve Walter.
Look, I thought it was fun to see Walter in his natural environment. We got to see Walter among the skater dudes that he hangs out with, and they were really fun characters. They were kind of like, I don't know, not what I imagined Walter's friends being like, but they were very fun characters, and I thought it was fun to see Steph, who's been very sidelined in the show, come back to have a couple of cool scenes here too, where she's kind of like desperately trying to flirt with the skater guys who are like, and then she just can't get any attention at all, and I think that's fun with the Steph character. Is she's just like very much exactly what like you think a normal girl would be. You know, like, oh, she's very much into boys and she's very much into all of this stuff, but she's not like a traditional uh, female supporting character. I like your character a lot, so I think that's a fun dynamic, and I like seeing that element of Walter too. Just him, what he does when he's not on the show, because he's not on the show very much.
Yeah, he's just hanging out with his friends, definitely smoking weed. If this was like on Freeform, he'd be smoking weed, and like that would have been a whole plot point. That would have been like the big problem is he offers her weed, and she's like, I don't know if I should do this, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, or she smoked it, and then she'd show up at work with some situation, and she'd be like high or something, and that'd be like the whole conflict.
exactly. So
I think it.
uh,
You go first. I
I
was
was
gonna
gonna.
go to a different plot line, so
Oh no, yeah, you go with yours because mine is more like a final conversation thing.
I wanted to talk about the mom plot line. I think that was pretty interesting this week. I think her plot is definitely the more adult oriented of the plot lines here, and she has this idea of like who she is at work is this very like stern, very work oriented person, and she's trying to figure out like how do I put out a different type of personality to people? How do I come off as like a human being they're gonna like? Because obviously she has these like political reasons to do it, but I think she also has this drive of like I want people to see the real me and like relate to me, connect with me, and she has that arc here. So I think there is a parallel there of like what people see you as versus what you are, you know. And I think that's something that was in the Walter and Doogie relationship, where it's like they see them as this mismatch that could never possibly work, and they see Walter as this slacker stoner who just hangs out with his skater friends all day, and they see her as like this accomplished doctor with this bright future. So I thought it was a nice parallel that this episode seems to really be on about like what you see what you see is necessarily who they are, and that was something that carried me through. Plus, we had a car chase with nice chase scene.
Yeah, I will say the one thing that I don't necessarily like about the mom's arc is I feel like it's very telegraphed of like where it's going, of like she's gonna learn to communicate and relate to people, and she's gonna use that to relate to the other guy that's going for chief of staff, and I feel like it's very much leaning to them being like co-chief of staff, where she's more of like the idea person and he's more of like the one that's going to send the message to everyone and kind of, break the ice and kind of sugarcoat everything and make everything go smoothly. I feel like, to me, that's just very telegraphed of where it's going.
I mean, sure, it's telegraphed, but I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think it would be nice, like the fact that she sees this guy as like this really total, complete, arrogant person, and maybe by the end of the season, she's going to have a conversation with him where she sees a bit more of like his side, and like he puts on this personality to be charismatic to the people, but he actually in his heart really does care about the hospital. And we only got 2 episodes left, so I think we're coming to an ending of that plot line pretty soon.
Yeah, that kind of leads into my question. So we're, 80% of the way through the show. We've been watching the show for 8 episodes now. Is this a show you think when season 2 comes up, if we get a season 2, are you going to watch it, or you kind of just be like, I watched season 1, and that was kind of it? Because I'm on the fence right now of where I lean.
I'm on the fence. For me right now, if the season ended and we were getting season 2, my thought process would probably be to just wait till the end and then binge through it. Yeah. I think that would be a much more enjoyable experience. But if these next 2 episodes really do kind of like bring things together, and I feel like I get to the end and I'm like, okay, there were a couple like misstep episodes here and there, but it did come together well. I'll be in on season 2 for sure. All
right. You ready to go to our next topic?
I also want to shout out really quickly before we move on the director of the episode, Gina Rodriguez.
Yeah, I saw that on Instagram.
Unique. She hasn't directed a ton of stuff, but towards the beginning of our covering of this show, I recommended Diary of a Future President, also on Disney Plus, and she is a producer on that, and she has kind of a reoccurring acting role in that as the future president.
Oh,
She
okay.
plays like the older version of the main character, and there's a couple of flash forwards and things like that that show her. So it's cool to see that cross promotion. She worked on a Disney show, a Disney Plus show a couple of years ago, and now she gets to work on this one and kind of further her directing career.
That's cool. All right, so that brings us to our next topic. We have Marvel Studios assembled, the making of What If. They've done a few of these now. They've done them for all of their Disney Plus shows. They did one for Black Widow. Wouldn't be surprised if we get one for Shang-Chi. Probably maybe a week or so after that drops on Disney Plus. But yeah, it's your basic standard. They've done these. It's kind of the same formula they've been doing. It's just like, hey, here's how we made What If. The one big piece that I got from this is that we're definitely getting a season 2, and I think we're getting a lot of these characters back because they talked about, Kevin Feige talked about, like, one of the through lines through this season was the relationship between Peggy Carter and the Watcher. And he said that's something that's going to go through to season 2. So I think that answered our question from the other week of, are we getting sequels to episodes? Are we getting new things? And I think it kind of told us that they're going to continue the plot line of what we already have.
Yeah, at the very least, Peggy Carter's plotline and a handful of other people. Because I think what I got most from this is that they were really trying to sell What If as like the opening of this grand door that leads to so many other things, like the beginning of something much bigger. And not just on the TV side, because they talk about season 2 and potentially beyond, but they even talked about how this is going to expand into other mediums and into the films. And I think it's really, this one in particular sold me on the idea of What If is not just this thing on Disney Plus that's kind of like there to fill out the time, but it actually is something that's going to, maybe we go back and watch this after Doctor Strange and we see, oh, look at all this stuff that was just kind of there, but and now in hindsight becomes a lot more important. It'll be really interesting to see how the multiverse kind of goes forward as it builds out and explodes from this one opening sequence here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely curious to see where it goes and what happens. And, cause this one told, like they said in the making of, like, this told a distinct story, like a clear story. So I'm curious to see, like, what the story is moving forward.
Yeah, and I wonder how weird are they going to get with the interdimensional stuff, because they talked a lot, especially in the beginning when they're talking about the writing process and coming up with the initial ideas for episodes about how liberating it was and how they were able to really kind of let loose and play with the characters they grew up playing with and tell these stories they grew up telling to their friends in the playground and that kind of stuff. And even back into the What If source material that they really were focusing on prominently in this documentary, it prided itself on being weird and being dark and really trying to push to new and creative ways that you can introduce characters, introduce different dimensions. And I would love to see them get more ambitious and even more creative and more zany with their worlds in the future seasons.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting, too, if, as far as, like, the Watcher pulling people from dimensions, I'd love if they were just like, yeah, we pulled, like, Shiri or somebody, whoever, from, like, the MCU that we know, and they pop up and they're in animated form, and then the next time we see them, like, they make, like, an offhand comment about, whatever happened to them.
Yeah, those are the type of things I expect, whether it's offhand comments or, like, background shots in the multiverse episodes and things like that. I expect at least a handful of these characters and these storylines in this season and beyond to move forward in the future of the MCU, which is pretty exciting.
Well, how would you feel if you go to sit down for the Eternals movie and, like, you notice in a background shot somewhere there is just like the silhouette of the Watcher? Because, like, we have Chloe Zhao directing, who's known for her big, like, landscape kind of cinematography. Like, like, how would you feel if you just saw, like,
that would be incredible. I would love it because that would imply that they've had this planned out even before. Like, when I see this, I think, oh, in like 2 or 3 years, we might start to see connections to the show. And if that happens, it's like, oh, they had this planned out while they were making Eternals, while they were making What If. It'd be awesome.
Well, okay, that had inspired me a question I have now. How would you, because you have, like, the special editions of, like, Star Wars and stuff, how would you feel if, like, especially now that pretty much all of them are on Disney Plus, if there were a few of those kind of silhouette Watcher shots included in, like, the old, like, Marvel movies? Like, if you were watching Iron Man and, like, the scene where the rocket hits his truck, if you now watched it and you realize there's a silhouette of the Watcher in the background. And they were like, yeah, we included that in. It wasn't, like, obviously always there.
it feels like cheating a little bit when you go back and you change it, But I do like that in Return of the Jedi and stuff like that, where it kind of expands the celebration at the end, and you see it connect to all the prequels and beyond. So theoretically, it could be cool in a handful of scenes, seeing him in the background, but it's not nearly as impressive if I go back and watch Guardians of the Galaxy and I look in the background and I'm like, oh my god, that's the actual Watcher. Like, could you imagine if there's some kind of random? And they did mention like in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, they see some Watchers, is how Kevin Feige put it. Like we kind of saw some Watchers in this Stan Lee scene, so it's interesting. Are they implying that there's like there's multiple Watchers in the MCU, or is that just like there was a joke James Gunn made, but we're not really counting that as like part of the story?
Well, I think in the comics there is like multiple Watchers, like so.
Yeah, I was curious how they were going to address that Guardians of the Galaxy thing, if that was going to be like something they just pretend never happened,
Yeah.
or what.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting too. Them talking about like their art inspiration as well as like the old Norman Rockwell paintings or stuff like that.
Yeah, they talked about using 2D art rather than like the 2.5 or the 3D art.
Yeah.
I think that helped a lot because the show does look great, and I think especially if they went 2.5, it would have looked really bad. Well, I'm not guaranteed, but I think a lot of the 2.5 animated doesn't look very good in my mind, and I think going for the 2D animation really helped the show look cool. And it had everything look at the watercolor kind of look to it. It all looked very practical and very physical, and I think that added a lot to the quality of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they also, because we talked about how this is going to lead into larger stuff, so they seemed very impressed with the Marvel Zombies as a premise, and they said it was like their first foray into the Marvel Zombies universe. So do you think that means we're going to get another Marvel Zombies episode in the next season?
Probably that makes sense. I can't see them ever including it in like the main Star Wars universe or main Marvel universe.
Yeah, I wouldn't see that unless I mean, like Doctor Strange is the one place where maybe it could show up if they really went crazy with the multiverse
Yeah.
stuff, but I don't expect it to be a prominent anything.
No,
So
yeah, like that's what I meant. Like I could see if they were hopping universes in Multiverse of Madness, I could see being in like the Zombies universe for 2 minutes, but I don't think it's gonna be one of those things where like the main threat of Phase 5 is like the zombies and like the Avengers have to team up to like stop themselves and stop the other people from becoming zombies.
yeah, I think that is definitely the future they're going to go with, is keeping it in the show form. But I do think they seemed like they were happy with it, and
Yeah.
they're already well into season 2 at this point. So
Yeah,
I think,
the way they were talking, I would not be surprised if season 2 is basically like ready to go.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if by this time next year we're already in the middle of season 2.
Yeah. Oh, and I like that they were like, yeah, we were kind of describing, like they were like thinking of the voice of the Watcher, and like immediately they were like, Jeffrey Wright, that's our guy.
hmm I also like too that they mentioned that the characters have these kind of north stars in their story. Like as much as Tony Stark changes and as much as he moves across the world, he always has the one couple things that like tie him to the Tony Stark we know. Whether it's Pepper Potts or whether it's like his core personality. And I thought that was a nice touch in the way they said we wrote for the characters, not necessarily for the actors. So like they were really trying to be like, okay, even if everything changed, what are like the core wounds of these characters that are going to be consistent throughout whatever universe they're in. And I think we mentioned that a lot in our reviews of like, as much as the Peggy Carter and Steve Rogers story changes, there's still those poetic moments they still hit. And I like that was a focus and something that wasn't just coincidence or not just lazy. It was something they actually like intentionally did for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I like kind of picked up on that, but it was cool to have them like explain it out and be like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, it was good to have them actually confirm it, because I feel like sometimes Marvel theories are entirely made up by the fans, and it's nice sometimes to be like, no, that's not just a fan thing. That's actually something we did.
Yeah.
So, how are you feeling, Joe, about season 2 of What If? We're not going to talk about the show much until the next season, I would imagine. So, how are you feeling? Hype level? Any expectations?
It's hard with like no trailer, no idea. Like, okay, what's the story? What are we doing? Because I felt like I got a complete story with really nothing to set up the next part of the story outside of Killmonger and who was the other character in Killmonger and Ultron, like fighting over the Infinity Stones. Of like, I mean, maybe that has nothing to do with season 2, and they're like, yeah, they're in this little pocket universe forever. Maybe like them breaking out is all of season 2, and it's about getting more heroes and those heroes. together to fight him again to stop him once and for all. But outside of that, like, I really have no idea what the story is. So
Yeah, I feel like they're at a really interesting point in this where they have so much potential and so much direction they could possibly be going, but also there's a lot of plot in Marvel that is being built up around this multiverse stuff. So I wonder when we come back for season 2, how much has the landscape shifted in terms of like public interest in the multiverse? How much is Marvel's understanding of the multiverse evolved? So if we get to season 2 and we have a much more complex, deeper understanding of Marvel's multiverse, is that a chance for them to get really ambitious and really kind of go larger with their stories, because they don't have to spend an entire season slowly but surely telling us what the multiverse is and how it works, you know? They can just go out with it. So I would like to see that. And another hope that I have is something they mentioned in this special is that the original What If comics served really well as introductions for characters that they hadn't read before. The guy mentions reading like a Ghost Rider What If and being like, oh, this Ghost Rider guy is pretty cool, and then going and discovering all of the Ghost Rider run that was going on at that point. So I would love it if season 2 of this show got beyond just using MCU characters in different ways and was able to bring in a Marvel character we have never seen before and make them a prominent part of this. Like the Watcher was a really, essentially a new character for the MCU in this show, and I think he had an impact. People talked about the Watcher and Jeffrey Wright's performance and how cool it was to see him come and unleash his powers. So I'd like it if season 2 brought in a couple of more characters we haven't seen yet in the MCU and gave us our first, or maybe even our only chance of seeing those comic book characters come to life.
what if they did? What if season 2 opened with like, what if the Fantastic Four were the Fantastic Five, and like Victor Von Doom was like a member and like he was a good guy?
That would be awesome because look, they got the Fantastic Four coming any year now. It's in the works.
Yeah,
So
they've
it's
like
being cooked
announced
up.
it that they're gonna make it. They just haven't like announced anything after that. Really, that basically we know they're making it, but we don't really know anything else.
Yeah, I'm really excited just because, we're going to have a much different idea of Marvel's multiverse by the time we get to season 2 of this. I imagine we'll probably have Doctor Strange out. We'll certainly have Spider-Man out by then.
Yeah.
So it'll be a totally new world, Joe.
Yep. All right, you ready to move on to our next topic?
I'm ready. What do we got next, Joe?
Next, we're gonna have the Book of Boba Fett trailer. So I've seen it multiple times today because as soon as it dropped, I watched it because I did not think about the fact that we were doing the Book of Boba Fett trailer review, or that we were doing our Disney Plus weekly review today, because normally we do it on Friday, so it's like a Monday trailer drop, so I might as well watch it. Tristan has not watched it yet, so what we've decided is Tristan is going to watch it live for the first time as part of our Disney Plus weekly review. I'll obviously be here too. And then, so we'll watch it together. You'll be able to see it on the screen as well. Hopefully that doesn't get us taken down off of YouTube. And then afterwards, we will review it. So, without further ado, I'm going to pull it up here really quick. And
it's only like a minute and a half or so long, so if you're an audio listener, you might have a little bit of a silent feed for a second, but we'll be back in not long.
Yeah, you'll be able to hear it a little bit.
Nice, cool Star Wars droid. Can't complain about that.
Hunter. I've heard otherwise.
Yeah, he does look cool in that costume.
I know that you sit on the throne of your former employer.
Jabba ruled with fear. I intend to rule with respect.
I like this. We're getting a different take on Boba Fett. He's not like a truly bad guy. He's trying to be like a middle ground.
I'm here to make a proposal that's mutually beneficial.
Mob vibes to this.
Why speak of conflict when cooperation can make us all rich?
Jennifer Beals is the actress that plays in Twilight.
What prevents us all from killing you
Didn't know that.
and taking what we want?
I can't wait to see him in action.
If you had spoken such insolence to Jabba, he'd have fed you to his menagerie.
Please. Speak freely.
That's some hype right there. It's really interesting. I I like that it's sort of like a Godfather mob take on Star Wars Galaxy. You really are getting a look at the underworld and the functioning of the underworld, and that was something that I thought we'd get out of Mandalorian, but we haven't necessarily gotten out of that show. It went in a different direction from what I was expecting from that. But this looks sort of in line with what I thought that show was going to be. It's very much about the underworld and how does that work. And I'm really curious to see the dynamic between Fennec Shand and Boba Fett as well, because we just got from that trailer. They both have these very different approaches to how they're going to rule the underworld, and Boba Fett wants to be this rational, we can all get along, we can all make money together type of person, and Fennec Shand's coming in, if you talked to Jabba that way, he would have killed you, and I think they're going to have a lot of butting heads over what the way to rule is going to be.
Yeah, and that last moment there confirmed my theory for me that the Rancor from Bad Batch is going to appear in the Book of Boba Fett. Like, I fully believe that's why they included that Rancor in the Book of Boba Fett, so they have, like, an explanation for why Jabba has another Rancor. And there is a heavy rumor that there is going to be a scene of Boba Fett riding a Rancor through a city, and I feel like that will be an amazing moment in the show that I'm heavily rooting for. But yeah, I'm like 99% sure every single moment we saw in that trailer is in the first 2 or 3 episodes. Apparently, so last night there was a leak that there was going to be a trailer today. I expected it not to drop until Monday Night Football, but obviously it dropped this morning. And that same person said that that same source that told them the trailer is coming today told them that there's going to be 9 episodes total. So
Nice, a nice short run, but not like so short that you're in and out. You get a full season out of it. I'm really looking forward to this. That trailer was impressive. I like the action in it. I really like the mob kind of look to the underworld. I'm curious if they're going to be on Tatooine the whole time, or if he's going to be trying to get off world and building up some kind of like larger crime syndicate, or if it's all going to be entirely about him trying to bring the crime syndicates of Tatooine together.
I think the first few episodes are him, like, because obviously he goes into Jabba's palace and kills what's his face, Bib Fortuna, at the in the post-credit scene of season 2 of The Mandalorian. So I think the first episode or 2 is going to be him securing Tatooine, and then I think the future episodes are going to be him doing other things. Like, I would not be surprised if we see him go to the Pikes and go to Black Sun and go to these other big prominent crime syndicates. But I feel like trailer-wise, they wanted to save those moments in their back pocket for like big reveals for when you watch the episode. Like fans are going to lose their mind if it's end of episode 3, he's like, oh, we have to go to our next location. We have to go visit our next syndicate. And Fennec Shand's like, who? And he's like, we have to go to Black Sun. Like something we've never seen in live action before would be.
Yeah, I imagine he gets off world because it looks like the plot's going to be him trying, most likely in a vain attempt to bringing all of these criminal syndicates together in some kind of shared leadership. And I think we've seen that type of story done before where it's like, oh, we can all benefit if we all just work together, and naturally greed kind of takes that apart. That's kind of the traditional narrative arc that you would take from that story. So I'm wondering if they're going to subvert that in any way, or if it's just going to be like, yep, he tries and he tries, but in the end, like the greed of people is going to be too much to make these criminals work together.
There is, so I've seen other people have speculation that basically a lot of the big theory right now involving all of the basically Disney Plus, Mando, Ahsoka, Book of Boba Fett, like post Return of the Jedi universe, is that they're essentially redoing the Timothy Zahn trilogy, but like swapping out characters. And so like Thrawn's obviously still the big bad, and that Ezra is essentially going to replace Luke's spot in the story. And I guess there was this character in that trilogy that was kind of like a Han Solo type who was a bounty hunter and all that. And as Thrawn's empire rose up, he led a group of essentially like other Han Solo types, like smugglers with a heart of gold, against Thrawn, and that's kind of what like tipped the scales and won the day. So a lot of people think Boba Fett is taking his place in the story, and that's what it's going to be, is he leads kind of the underworld against Thrawn.
I think that's pretty cool. Because, yeah, this Book of Boba Fett spinoff could essentially be there just to establish Boba Fett as a leader of the criminals, so that when he shows up in, Ahsoka or whatever else being the leader of the criminal syndicate, you're like, oh, I understand why that happened because I watched the whole show.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily need to watch this because if you watch Mandalorian, you got the post-credit scene, you get, I think, what you're going to need to get. Boba Fett took over the crime world, and now he's the leader.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost similar in a way to Falcon and Winter Soldier, where if you didn't watch the show, hey, Falcon got the shield, he's Captain America now. But if you watch the show, you understand like there's a lot more backstory to it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
I can't wait for it, Joe. I like that this trailer didn't give a lot away. I expected at least one kind of like, oh, Cad Bane's the final shot, something like that. But
yeah,
there was no big reveal, so I'm excited that we're gonna get to the series and not have anything.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact of like because of how little Boba Fett is in. Like they're not gonna have Han or Luke or anything. Any big reveals that like are gonna blow casual fans' minds, it's gonna be more of like Black Sun or Hondo or Cad Bane, and I feel like Lucasfilm's opinion is, and like I don't disagree with them, is if you know who Cad Bane are, if you know who Hondo are, if you know what Black Sun is, like you're watching this show. And so if you don't know who those characters are, like having that reveal at the end will just confuse you. Of like you'd just be like, I feel like I'm supposed to know who that is, but I don't know who that is. Like that was treated like it's a big reveal, but I'm confused.
I'm really curious to see how people react to the show. Like you said, super fans, we're going to be watching this anyway, but I know that Boba Fett as a character, as an image, is really iconic among like general Star Wars fans, but I'm really curious what the interest level is going to be on like a show about Boba Fett. When we already have a Mandalorian show, are people going to be like, oh, I thought I just watched that? I'm really curious how people are going to react to this.
Yeah, I feel like if it has a different storyline, like Mandalorian was very much lone wolf and cub, and I feel like this is very much, especially everything I've heard rumor-wise and leak-wise, this is very much going to be like the Godfather Part 2 of him, where Jabba is essentially like his father, not like in emotion, but like storyline-wise, where, okay, Jabba, who was the top dog, is now gone, just like Vito was gone in Godfather Part 2, and Boba Fett's essentially Michael trying to control everything and take over, and apparently there are going to be 3 storylines. I guess there's gonna be like right post Clone Wars storyline, basically him surviving the Sarlacc pit, and then our main present day storyline. And there's a shot too of the Tusken Raiders like walking like in the whose like image was obscured by like the heat coming off the sand, and a lot of people are speculating that that's like the Tusken, like he's just crawled out of the Sarlacc pit, and like the Tusken Raiders have just come and saved him, or like coming to save him.
I can't wait to see how this all like formats out. Like you mentioned, is it going to be a couple of different storylines that kind of jump around? Because it is called the Book of Boba Fett, so I think that implies like these chapters. I'm just really curious to see how it's all going to break down and how different it's going to feel from the other shows. And yeah, I'm really excited for this one. Before I watched that trailer, I was like, okay, it's just going to be another Boba Fett. It's like, it's whatever. But I don't know, that trailer, it feels nice to see Star Wars again, and sure, it's similar to Mandalorian, but the trailer sold me on it being a much different show with a much different focus and different tone. So if they can keep that up and it doesn't just feel like we're spinning our wheels till we can get Mandalorian out, and I'll be excited for it.
Yeah. And one rumor, too, that people are 50-50 on is because you had, like, Mandalorian Episode 1 was Chapter 2, and Episode 2 was Chapter 2 and all that, all the way up to Chapter 16. There's some rumors that, like, all of these Mandoverse shows are going to be in sequence. So, like, Episode 1 of Book of Boba Fett will be Chapter 17.
Interesting.
And then, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that works theoretically because it sets up this idea that like you're reading it all continuously, but I also think that defeats the purpose of like having all the individual shows crossing together. Because if someone goes and clicks on Mandalorian season 3 and they're like, oh, a chapter, 21, I missed 10 chapters. What happened? And I think that causes more confusion than it does anything else.
Yeah.
I think the best potential here is to have all of these still feel like separate shows that do cross over, but I don't like the idea of them all running into each other and feeling like one long thing that never ends. I like that they feel like different things.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. All right, you ready for our second to last topic?
I'm ready, Joe. What do we got here?
Okay, keeping in the Star Wars family, we got some big Darth Maul I mean, it's not confirmed, but Jordan Mason, Maison, never sure how to pronounce that, who at this point doesn't really miss. If you go on the Star Wars Leaks subreddit, pretty much 90% of everything he says is true, and he is reporting that a new Star Wars animated series to focus on Darth Maul's shenanigans is currently in development or in production. And I'll just read what he wrote. You can find this on cinelinx.com, cinelinx.com. And he says, according to multiple sources, it looks like a new Star Wars animated series is already in the works that could fill in some Crimson Dawn / Darth Maul gaps. I know we're all still recovering from the Book of Boba Fett trailer, but had some information come in I thought would be worth discussing. About a month ago, I heard from a source that voice recording was underway for a new, as yet unannounced Star Wars animated series was going down. This, along a second source, informed me familiar Star Wars voice actors D. Bradley Baker, Matt Lanter, and Sam Witwer were recording something. I couldn't pin down what they were recording for, whether for another Bad Batch season or something else, so I just kind of let it sit and was hoping to get more information later. Thankfully, that's come in from a pair of independent sources who tell me that Darth Maul will be the focus of the new animated series. While they both mentioned Maul, one source specifically mentioned it was a show about his time running Crimson Dawn before Solo: A Star Wars Story. I have even heard Paul Bettany is expected to come back to voice Dryden Voss. Off and on for a few years now, I've heard Lucasfilm has been keen to get some sort of Darth Maul series up and running in live action. For various reasons, cough, cough, Ray Park, cough, cough. However, they haven't been able to get it going. As such, this new animated series seems to be what they've decided to go with instead. It also lines up with having heard about Crimson Dawn-related plans for a while now, an organization I'm sure will continue to pop up in various projects. Considering Maul is a major focus of my personal collection, I'm all about the blah blah blah. Basically, that's it. So the show I've been pitching on here since Solo came out is the show we are getting, and I'm hyped. They could be like, never mind, we lost all our data files on Book of Boba Fett, but we're keeping Darth Maul. I'm happy in life.
Look, Joe, I know as soon as I saw this headline, I was like, oh, that's a Joe Victory lap right there. He's going to come on. He's going to be a pool of joy. And yeah, I thought of you when I read that because I know you're a big Maul fan, you're a big Crimson Dawn fan, you're a big Solo defender. So I think this is all going to tie into a lot of the stuff that you're extremely into within Star Wars. And I am excited, even if it's just going to be to watch you watch it, It's not like I'm not excited for it, but I'm more excited for you than I am for myself for this news. But I do think it'll be exciting. I think the Crimson Dawn has a lot of potential to be interesting, a lot of potential for storytelling that they haven't really done a lot with. A lot of Darth Maul appearances in Joe's cam right now. But yeah, I think Crimson Dawn, untapped potential. And Darth Maul, of all of the things that happened in Clone Wars, all the things that happened in all of Star Wars animation and spinoffs, I think the fact that Darth Maul came back to life and was kind of turned into a full-fledged character is the one thing that is kind of going beyond just, I don't know how to say this, but I do think like casual Star Wars fans, if they know anything about Clone Wars, they know about Darth Maul. So I think bringing him back into the mainstream again is going to be good for the fan community. And I'm excited to see it. I hope we get some Kiara appearances. I think we could see her in Book of Boba Fett as well. I wonder if we'll see some crossover between Book of Boba Fett and Crimson Dawn. I think it's written to be there. Like if he's trying to unite all of the crime syndicates, Crimson Dawn is like right in there.
I think basically by Clone Wars Season 7, like we have that moment where like Dryden Voss appears. So I think... So, like, they're saying Matt Lanter will be a voice who, obviously, if you don't know, played or voiced Anakin in the, like, Star Wars animated stuff. So maybe we'll get some stuff that's, like, during the end of the Clone Wars and maybe see him set up Crimson Dawn a little bit more. And then... run it and kind of see the full course of Crimson Dawn all the way through, because it's animated, you can do time jumps and age characters easier than like in live action, and have like the full run of Crimson Dawn and see what exactly led to Maul being on Malachor in Rebels.
Yeah, there's a lot to fill in there. Whether it's Maul's story or Crimson Dawn's story, like you said, how he gets between all these points. Like in Rebels and Solo, there's so much to fill in there.
Yeah.
So I'm loving it. I think it's a great potential story here, and along with
hyped.
Bad Batch, it's like I'm glad we're still getting animated shows out of Star Wars too. I was scared that we'd be leaving animation behind and moving on to live action because it's been so much more successful than their animation has been.
I feel
But I'm excited that we're still getting some stuff.
I feel like especially if I assume they've thought of different avenues to do the show in live action, but I feel like to use like Ray Park's body and then Sam Witwer's voice is probably like a pain to do an entire show that way. Like when you figured out how they do it in Solo, where they had Sam Witwer record the dialogue, and then they had Ray Park like try to voice match, like move his mouth to match it as much as close as possible, and then they had Sam Witwer go and try to match to Ray Park's mouth. And I feel like if you were to do an entire show that way, it would just be too expensive and too costly, and I feel like they would just... And then they probably thought, well, maybe we'll just use, like, Sam's body and head for the talking scenes, and then anytime he has to fight, you know, we'll use Ray Park as a stunt double, but I just think animation is the best way to go. That's how we've mostly seen Maul outside of Episode 1 in that quick shot in Solo, so... Everything else with Maul and all of Maul's best moments really are in animation. So I'm perfectly content and happy with it being in animation. I'm super hyped, but because it's not an officially announced thing. Now, next week, we have November 12th, we have Disney Plus Day, and I think the week after that, we have not Star Wars Celebration, we have D23, I believe. I could be wrong. I've been saying that for a while, and I've never looked it up to confirm when D23 is. Maybe it got moved and I haven't noticed. Because I feel like no one's really talking about it, but if they announce, because now it's heavily rumored, if they announce it there, then I'll allow myself to get more excited.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I don't want to let my imagination run wild, so that I'm disappointed when this is just a rumor. Because we do get rumors all the time in Star Wars of stuff that ends up not panning out.
Yeah, like even a show they've announced is now on the back burner of Rangers of the New Republic. So.
Yeah, they could announce something, they could start filming it, and it still could not come out. So I take this with a grain of salt in the modern world. You know, I mean, we've seen in the last couple of years how unpredictable the world can be and how stuff can shift in a moment's notice. And when it's only a rumor, I do try to go in slightly with some salt, you know. But I think that it's coming from a credible source, and it feels very much. It's not like something unexpected, you know. When I hear, they're making a Crimson Dawn Darth Maul animated show, I think, of course they are. Like that makes sense. You know, it wasn't like a totally bizarre ass pull type of thing. It was a choice that I think made sense. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And D23 is this year. It starts November 19th.
So I'm looking it up.
I'm on D23.com, and I've got November 19th to 21st as a D23 week this year. Okay. So that gives us 2 weeks from this Friday. So essentially 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It's going to be a packed couple weeks, though. We got the Disney Plus Day that's sure to have at least a couple reveals. And then we've got D23, which is guaranteed to have reveals beyond just like Marvel. You know, because I do think we'll get a couple of Marvel reveals, but I think D23 is going to be a much larger scale thing.
So I was looking it up. There's like a thing about like the parks in the like cruises and stuff is going to be that day, but they've moved official D23 Expo to September 9th, 10th, and 11th, 2022.
Okay, never mind then. Not a packed month.
So it was originally slated to be next week, so I was wrong. So we just have Disney Plus Day, and maybe they'll announce something on Disney Plus Day, but the more, and we'll talk about it in our November preview, but I think we're maybe like misunderstanding what Disney Plus Day is. I could be wrong, but
I think we will get one or two reveals that are out of the Marvel thing. But like I said, we'll get into the Disney Plus Day in a second. But yeah, I think it's more so just, hey, we have a lot to drop, so we're just gonna kind of drop it on one day and make it like feel like an event, you know. But I do think that Marvel presentation will at least give us release dates for stuff, if nothing else.
Yeah. All right, you ready to talk for our November preview?
Yep. Speaking of, Joe, what do we got coming up for this month?
All right, so we're already at the start of the month. So November 3rd, obviously got the penultimate episode of Doogie Howser M.D. Or Doogie Kamealoha M.D., sorry. November 5th, nothing new. But on that Friday, there are some things dropping, including Jingle All the Way 1 and 2, as well as X-Men First Class are coming to Disney+.
I don't think I've seen Jingle All the Way. I certainly haven't seen Jingle All the Way too. So
Okay, you
I'm
need to
probably
watch
going to
Jingle
watch
All the
both of
Way.
those.
Jingle All the Way stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, obviously, and everyone's favorite Anakin Skywalker, Jake Lloyd, as his son.
Oh wow, I gotta watch it. It's one of those ones that I'm sure I rented the DVD from Blockbuster at some point in my childhood, but at this point I couldn't tell you much other than Arnold Schwarzenegger Christmas movie.
And Sinbad is in it. He's the villain. And
You're selling me on this more and more, Joe.
And Jingle All the Way 2 does not star Arnold Schwarzenegger, unfortunately. It does, however, star everyone's favorite comedian, Larry the Cable Guy.
Big change there.
All right, and so November 10th, we have the Doogie Kamealoha season finale, which is going to be a big celebration around here on our Disney Plus Weekly Review.
It's going to be a big day.
Yep. And then November 12th, obviously Disney Plus Day, a lot of big drops. We have Jungle Cruise coming to Disney Plus, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. We have Home Sweet Home Alone making its premiere. We have Olaf Presents Disney Plus Day, which I believe is just like some Olaf shorts explaining the plot of various like recent Disney movies. World According to Jeff Goldblum Season 2 drops. I believe Season 1 dropped 2 years ago when Disney Plus premiered, so I think COVID probably pushed that back a bit.
Oh, I'm sure, because that's very much like an outgoing, meeting people, going places kind of show.
Yeah. Under the Helmet, the Legacy of Boba Fett documentary drops, which I'm surprised. I honestly thought that would drop, and then like the Book of Boba Fett, it would be like, watch this, and then it unlocks like the Book of Boba Fett trailer or something cool like that, but apparently not. And then we'll also have 9 various short films, some of them new, some of them are older short films.
Yeah, I know one of them is going to be Paper Boy, I think it's called. One of their most acclaimed shorts. Got a bunch of awards and stuff like that. So if you haven't seen that, I'd recommend watching it.
All right, and then
what are you looking forward to on Disney Plus Day, Joe? We got a bunch of drops here, though.
Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. Under the Helmet, the Legacy of Boba Fett's probably my number one. Nothing else really interests me. Like, I've seen Shang-Chi. I liked it. I enjoyed it, but it's not like I'm like, oh, dying to see that again. That's a big thing circling my calendar. Jungle Cruise didn't interest me when it originally came out a few months ago. Still does after their views. Still doesn't interest me. Home Sweet Home Alone looks bad. Don't really care about any of the animated shorts. So. Honestly,
yeah, I will say.
Yeah, nothing really outside of the Boba Fett documentary is really.
Yeah, for a Disney Plus Day, I feel like they could have had a couple of bigger things in there than movies that we already watched, and then a movie that is like guaranteed bad.
They should have moved. They literally should have moved Hawkeye up 2 weeks, and had just not had the 2-day premiere. So Hawkeye should have premiered on Disney Plus Day.
Yeah, I think it's a weird choice not to have that happen when they're so close to each other, you know. But I am looking forward to watching Shang-Chi again. That'll be a worthwhile watch. And if you haven't seen Jungle Cruise, I think it's built for like a Saturday afternoon stream on Disney Plus. You know, it's not going to be your top movie of the year or anything like that. But if you want to sit around and like background watch a movie while you are having other stuff to do, it's a perfect movie for that. And there's some great like spectacle and fun performances. So if you just want a passable good time, it's there for you. But yeah, I'm looking forward to rewatching Shang-Chi. The World According to Jeff Goldblum Season 1 was okay, so Season 2, I'll probably watch a couple episodes of it, but unless it blows me away.
Yeah.
Overall, an okay Disney Plus Day, but for something that was built up so much, I was hoping for a little bit more in terms of drops.
Yeah, and there was, there were other stuff, but a lot of it was like kiddie stuff, so I just didn't include it because I didn't even know really what it is. I did just skim an article about Disney Plus Day, and there is going to be a presentation about stuff that's to come on Disney Plus. So hopefully, I imagine like a lot of it's going to be like, oh, Paw Patrol season 35, is coming, and other things I don't care about. But I would not be surprised if they don't sneak in like some, hey, like Andor. At this point, I think they should tell us at least month release dates for these Star Wars shows coming out in 2022. Now that I think we've kind of moved past the strike, I feel like we're kind of past that, so I feel like they can lock down some of these days more. And they don't have to be like, oh, this is coming out August 24th, but at least they're like, hey, this is coming out in August, this is coming out in June, this is coming out, February.
Yeah, I think that presentation is going to be the highlight of the Disney Plus Day. Essentially, like, even if it's only date reveals, that's going to be fun information. And I would imagine at least one or two new reveals. Marvel and Star Wars always got stuff cooking up in their back burner to pull out when they need to. And we haven't gotten any like huge movie reveals outside of, or any kind of like reveals for those two franchises that are, at least in the last like few months or so. Yeah. So I think they have a lot to talk about.
Crimson Dawn coming October 2023. Boom.
Look, maybe that rumor's out there because they're about to announce it. Who knows?
Yeah. All right. So November 19th, we have Muppets Christmas Letters to Santa, which is an older thing, I guess, because it was in their like library catalog section, not in their new release section. So I don't really even know what that is, but I don't really care about the Muppets. So if you're a Muppets fan and you've never seen this, or maybe you have seen it and you enjoy it, November 19th, you're going to get to watch it for free on Disney+. November 24th, we have the first two episodes of Hawkeye are dropping.
Excited for that one.
November 25th, we have Beatles Get Back Part 1, which is the Peter Jackson documentary about the making of the album Let It Be, which was originally titled Get Back. So if you're a Beatles fan, or if you're maybe a documentary fan, you get to watch Part 1 on November 25th.
I can't wait for that. That's my most anticipated release of the month from Disney+.
Well, I got some good news for you. You're gonna like what drops on November 26th and November 27th.
I've got even more of it, but his last documentary was really good, so I imagine this is gonna be still pretty good.
Yeah. So November 26th, the thing I'm sure you're most anticipated watching, and that's Ernest Saves Christmas, is coming to Disney+. So. And then also on November 26th, they're doing I don't understand why they didn't just release it all at the same time, because it's back-to-back days. So Part 2 of Beatles Get Back comes out November 26th, and then on November 27th, we're getting Part 3 of Beatles Get Back.
It's interesting because it was originally a movie, so I'm wondering, like, now it's a 3-hour multi-part thing. So they must have split it up for a reason.
Yeah, I wonder if, like, on the festival circuit, it will be premiered kind of all as one thing. It's like, hey, this is a movie we're trying to win an Oscar for like, best documentary, but, like, just as far as Disney Plus goes, they're like, oh, we broke it up into 3 parts.
Yeah, and I think making it off over 3 days is interesting because it gives you, like, a lot of mind share, I guess, or a lot of, like, user share, because someone does watch all that. That's like
3 things that they watched instead of 1.
And on 3 different days, too, so that really will help Disney's numbers. But yeah, I'm interested on watching this one because They Shall Not Grow Old with his documentary on World War I soldiers, and he had like an incredible use of archive footage that was really, really kind of moving to watch. And I'm thinking the Beatles are not going to be as emotionally moving as a war where thousands of people were killed, but it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool to see all that archive footage put together, and especially when they're creating such an iconic album.
All right. Anything else you want to say about Disney Plus this week?
No, it was a fun run, Joe. We had a lot to talk about, and it seems like according to this list, we got a lot coming up still. So we're not slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah, we thought for sure, like November is going to be hard to get through, October is going to be hard to get through, but every time we think that, they're like, oh, here's this that's dropping, here's this that's dropping. I feel like, especially with Star Wars and Marvel, like we're going to have a lot of content to talk about next year. So I think switching from doing individual show reviews to just doing one Disney Plus weekly review is the way to go.
Yeah, I think definitely we're getting more and more content, and stuff like Doogie Kamealoha we never would have watched if we weren't doing this show. So a lot of nice opportunities to watch stuff I never would have.
All right, I think that wraps up our show for today. I don't have anything else I gotta say, so without further ado...
Hey, thank you for watching the Movie Change Up podcast. We'd really appreciate if you liked, commented, subscribed, and shared us with anyone you think might be into what we're doing over here. Thank you. Have a nice day.